And hello everyone, and welcome to this special panel presentation of Peer Leaders, a lesson of respect. I'm your host, Rob Brown. These next 25 minutes will bring you clips from when some of us here in this panel today taught you, now 10th graders here at BASH. You're watching this as part of your training to become peer leaders yourselves because of the efforts of the peer leaders who themselves were taught, including myself. Before we begin, I would like now to introduce you to the people on today's panel. People you probably already remember seeing. Rebecca Trout, Morgan Reese-Snyder, and Leah Williams. Masha Tomkis, Brian Rowley, and Cody Dredento. In the end, it will be up to you to decide what you as peer leaders want to do in order to effectively teach others to respect not only yourselves, but also other people, other cultures, etc. First off, it is important, very important, to have some kind of warm-up before starting your sessions, designed to get your peers' attention, and you could even demonstrate a situation where people are disrespecting other people, utter disrespect. One example is an opening skit, like these two.
So my alarm woke me up at 6, and I got a shower, and I got all pretty before I had to go to school, and then it took me 20 minutes to remember it was Saturday.
Are you kidding me? That's dumb even for a blonde to do.
Don't, that's mean. Don't say that.
Like, you're any better, you're a cheerleader. How much smarter could you be?
Hey.
Why don't all three of you guys just go to the kitchen and make me a sandwich?
Excuse me, that wasn't very nice.
Taylor, I don't care.
Well, you should care.
Well, why would I? Look at me. He just looks so stupid with his walk. I mean, he's always getting in my way in the hallway.
I mean, like, just walk around him.
And miss out on a good laugh? No way.
You know, it's not his fault that he was born that way. You know, how would you feel if it was you?
All right, so how effective do you guys believe is the opening skit at the start of class?
Rob Brown, I think that the skit was pretty effective. I think there was some good acting in there. I think that it could be a little more dynamic, a little more lively to get people more interested at the beginning of class.
People on this side?
I believe that it was effective because it caught their attention and they weren't expecting a skit at first, so.
But if we were to go this route, what would be done to make it better? What could we do to make it maybe more dramatic?
You could possibly add more that you could say that would be like bullying and make it more like live, like more lively, and add more like, I don't know, like more flavor to it.
I think that you'd want to make it so it almost looks like it's not a skit. Make it seem like we're actually acting that way.
If we were to do something other than an opening skit, could you think of other ideas that can be done for an attention-grabbing introduction?
Maybe putting the definitions of, or the words of like bullying, bystander, confronter, putting that all on the board and asking what the class thinks the definition is. And from that, we'll kind of gain what they think it is, and we'll kind of build off of their knowledge.
Well, I could see playing maybe like a video of something serious that really did happen, or a news flash or story that would really get them attention.
How do we get the technology ready in a timely manner?
Well, maybe if we made a PowerPoint or a video beforehand and put it on a smartboard or something, that could possibly work.
Well, either way, there's going to be an introduction, but after you warm up the people you're training, it's time now to get them involved, if not done already. But even before that, the first thing that needs to be done is to introduce the Anti-Defamation League, its mission, what it stands for, and maybe some of its history, but overall, get it out there. Introduce yourselves to your peers and perhaps even the students in the room. But once that's over with, it is time to lay down the rules. Make that guidelines. Using the word respect. Your job is to ask for student volunteers to say a word related to respect, beginning with an associated letter. Here is an example of this activity.
Alright, so the
any word for R? Reasonable. Are there any others? Alright.
What do you mean by enthusiastic?
Well, you go into activities and you do what you gotta do with energy and positive attitude.
That's good. The other two we have are oops and ouch. If somebody ever says something in this class today to offend you, you say oops, it gives that person a chance to say, or ouch, it gives that other person a chance to say oops and like kind of apologize for it, and then we can discuss it, see where things kind of went downhill to offend somebody.
Any observations about the peer leaders, the students in the classroom? Maybe both, of course, nothing personal to those who representing those two groups.
The one thing that we did run into while we were doing this, the activities at the junior highs, is that a lot of people didn't want to participate, and that's a problem that a lot of us run into. And I don't really know if we have a solution on how to fix that yet.
I think the solution to fix that is to sit among the students and just be a part of them and act like a teacher, but also act like a friend and like help them out in a student way.
Yes.
So students being students, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes, that way they don't look at you as much as like a teacher role, but more as like one of their their peers and just another student basically, and I feel like that'll make it easier to talk.
What are some good things that came out of this?
In some classes, there were definitely more students willing to participate than others. In one of the classes in the morning that I remember having, I mean, we had, just with the whole respect portion of the lesson, there were 3, 4, 5 words for every letter. So it does work depending on, how interested the students are.
Okie dokie. Activities will be taking up the bulk of your sessions. A typical 40-minute session will involve 2 activities. If there's a lot of time left, maybe even 3. These activities can range from enjoyable to very reflective. This first activity in this next clip is a worksheet called One Person, Many Roles, or another name for it is 4 Corners. This peer training group is giving directions on how to fill out this paper. And pay attention, for you may end up doing this in your own training sessions as well.
You're going to get a sheet that looks just like this, and you have to fill it out based on your life. So based on the skit, we have a target, a perpetrator, a bystander, and an ally or a confronter. The target was Morgan, and she was targeted because she was a blonde. The perpetrator, the bully, was bullying the girls because he thought they were stupid. The bystander was afraid of being bullied, so that's why she didn't do anything. And the confronter stuck up for her because she thought it was wrong. So if you guys want to take a couple minutes and fill out.
Comments about it?
I think that anyone who's doing it should make it maybe more interesting and make them want to listen more, not like in class. If I had been sitting there, I probably would have zoned out.
The other peer leading group, we don't have that clip of that, but they were in another classroom at the time, except they did not put the 4 boxes on the whiteboard as an example. They simply stated that one box was the bully. I think it's called the aggressor now because of the new policy that the school district set. Another, the confronter or ally, etc. I'd like you guys to compare and contrast this and putting the example on the board, and which is better overall. In what ways does one do well over the other, etc.
Well, I personally think that students really need an example to look on the board and to see clearly that this is what they're doing, and I think that really helps them out because they didn't have any questions about it and they just knew what they were doing. And if you just stated it, there might be confusion that would just take up more time. Probably.
Yeah. Again, I think that students definitely need something to visualize that would help their experience, and it would help them do the activity better. And it's just like something to look at, something to catch their attention.
The next step in this particular activity, again, 4 corners, is to break up the class into 4 smaller groups for experiences related to the bully, the aggressor, the bystander, the confronter / ally, and the victim, sharing with whichever peer leader is in that group his or her experience. After a few minutes, the class will return to their seats, and they'll have an overall discussion about that activity as an entire class. Here are some excerpts from this large group discussion.
Out of all your boxes, anybody want to share the group?
No. It doesn't have to be the one you went to.
It could be anyone. No, nobody was shy. No. Didn't anybody like this activity?
It was okay.
You liked it?
So what do you guys think is a good idea to stop bullying or stop getting picked on?
Stay around friends because usually I've noticed that bullies usually bully me when I'm alone.
It means like an intimidation factor.
Yeah, if you're
okay.
someone.
Okay,
So
that makes
yeah,
sense.
that sounds not actually bad, thinking about it. That could be a thing. Not now, don't turn that into, hey, I'm bigger than you, now I'm threatening you, but just, like, showing them that you're not as whatever as they think you might be.
I like this one because you can relate to other people, but I thought it was kind of boring too.
Well, it's the first positive comment we had all day, so that's good.
And yes, there were some moments that were considered awkward. But what do you believe contributes to this awkward silence we just saw in the beginning there?
Like I said before, it's when students kind of think of us as more as teachers instead of as like other students, so they don't really pay as much attention to us because they think of us as students, where if we sit among the class, maybe have more discussions one-on-one with people.
What could be done to encourage the student to speak? I mean, it's not possible all the time, but what could help some of the time?
We got to be among the students. We have to be more relatable. We have to act more as their peers rather than like their superiors. If we're more energetic, if we're more in their face, they'll at least notice that, and maybe that'll prompt them to answer more.
Something to consider there. The second activity featured, moving on now, is one of my favorites, if not sometimes awkward. Basically, it's a circle of friends trying to keep an outsider from getting in that circle, ignoring him or her as the attempt is made to break in. Now, depending on how the circle game is explained, it can either go well or few students, if any, will get the point. This is one of those activities that call for a demonstration if and when the need arises. Anyhow, here it is. From the instructions to the game going horribly wrong, that demonstration, and students talking away happily ever after. This is the first such example.
You're going to try to get in your group of friends, and you're going to stand in a circle as tight as you want, but you can't touch them and they can't touch you. And you're going to try like as hard as you can to ignore them and not let them in your group. Does that make sense? So you'll be like, pretend we were in a group and we were all huddled together real close and we were talking. And every time you're like, hey guys, can I come in? You change the topic to something else. Try to keep them out. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Okay, school appropriate. Guys, everybody. Does everybody understand what's trying to happen here? I know. Wasn't that fun? I know.
Where's the pancakes? I need pancakes and I want to watch football.
And now that's just one such example. Let's see what the other group did in their explanation as to how the games be played.
So what we're doing here is we're doing this game is called the circle game. Really this activity is just to show like how like up in the high school how people can just exclude just other people like in normal conversations and like just so you can understand like how the feeling is from both ends. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be part of the circle and those volunteers are going to be trying to get into your circle. Your number one goal is to not let them into your circle.
They cannot touch you.
Not yet.
Yeah,
No,
so they
there's
cannot touch you and you cannot talk to them.
no physical contact whatsoever.
All right, so we saw those two examples. Now, earlier we saw that demonstration with the first clip. How does a demonstration of this activity help a lot?
A lot of students might not get the whole idea that, you have to exclude one person because a lot of times people don't really want to do that. That could be your friend. So to see the leaders actually excluding someone, it makes it easier to, get the whole objective.
Well, I think it helps you feel what it really feels like to be an outsider and an insider.
Compare and contrast both groups' directions because both groups, they both have some good ideas. What elements of each version can be incorporated in one big thing, whether it's the demonstration on one side or how well is explained on the second clip. I'm just giving an example here.
I believe that you should demonstrate and have one person talk about it while you're demonstrating to point out the key points of what's going on.
Okie dokie. Just like the first activity, or like any other activity that you do for that matter, it must be discussed afterwards, such as, in this case, how it felt to be an outsider, or if it is the student's favorite activity, things like that. Talking about what happened during the game will help to understand what it feels like to be left out, since this sort of thing happens on a regular basis for many students in school. Here are snippets from this class discussion.
The outsiders that weren't let in, how'd you feel? Worthless. Worthless? What about the group? How did that make you guys feel, knowing that you had your friends talking to you, but that person wasn't there?
I kept wanting to answer that, even though it was kind of fun. I thought it would look a certain way, like all other people.
Does this, do you think this relates to real life?
Yeah, but not this extreme.
Did you guys like this one?
Yeah.
One of the questions was brought up by Morgan herself, actually, about the circle game relating to real life. Does this game relate to real life, even though it's on a level that's nowhere near what's happening to high school students, or even junior high students for that matter?
I agree with that because the students can understand and learn like you can be like an outcast and that you can feel like how other people feel and get the feeling and understand like maybe that you could help the person that's being outcasted.
Yeah, you want to get into a certain group or a certain clique, and no matter what you say or do, it's just like people will ignore you and just disregard you and like your efforts to make friends with them. So yeah, it does happen.
And so, with that said, we're going to move on now. Being a peer leader means more than doing an opening skit, doing the ground rules, and doing activities. It is never going to be completely, this is going to happen no matter what. Sometimes there may be opportunities to do other non-scripted things, such as a story you've heard on how someone wanted to commit suicide, but someone was there to encourage him, to get to meet new friends and interact with other people. Peer leader Dustin Mager told students that story in the following clip.
There was this kid walking home with all of his books. Kind of a, like, not the stereotype, but like kind of like a nerdy looking kid. Just moved to the school and really didn't have any friends. Well, there's a football player jogging by, going home, going to a football, like not practice, but just going to goof around with some friends. Well, he bumps this kid in the shoulder and all his books fall on the ground. So he helps him pick up his books. It's like, well, what do you do with all your books? There's really not that much homework. And he's like, well, just taking them home. I'm going to study this weekend. And he said, why don't you come with me and play some football with me and my friends? And you can get to know some people and make some friends. This kid graduated, and he was the head of the class, so when he was giving his speech, he straight up said, that weekend, I was going home to commit suicide because I didn't think life was worth living. That one incident saved his life, and that's all it takes.
Wow, amazing. Comment about the story.
I think it will just make it a little bit more real. It's one thing for us to say this could happen and try to make activities for examples, but telling a story, it actually happened. It makes it more real.
Is it a good way for the students to realize that even the most simple word, thought, action, etc. can lead to someone's suicide?
I feel like it's kind of needed because a lot of people, when they say stuff, they don't really think about it, that it'll hurt, until they hear a story that's true and they realize how serious just one little word can be to somebody.
The best thing, like we learn all the time that the best thing to do is just smile to anyone. And I know we've heard several stories about that too, how a smile can save someone's life.
Well, the other thing to expect about being a peer leader is that you'll most likely have a class that doesn't seem to get the point. That perhaps a certain part of what we as peer leaders stand for is a joke. Granted, we're all young and foolish, but when it comes to the loss of a close friend, for example, because of something like suicide, it can be emotionally traumatizing to those who knew that friend. It is time to silence the room and make the students understand the consequences of ignoring the lesson of respect. We have selected portions of this speech. This is 4 minutes long. We've narrowed it down, which best conveys and simplifies the message.
So you need to take this seriously. I mean, we go out of our way to come here and to do this for you guys. Like, we're missing class. People have killed themselves, suicide. They've done that because of bullying. I know people that have done that, and it hurts. That's why I'm in this, to show people that we can prevent it. But if you're not going to take this seriously, then I know outside of the class, you're not going to try to prevent it. It really does hit you once you lose a friend from this kind of stuff. So I'm asking you guys, don't just wait until someone's gone to actually realize, because it's the worst feeling in the world, okay?
What is one thing that students don't seem to understand about a close friend committing suicide, that somehow it's humorous to a certain extent?
We're kids, we're young, we're moderately stupid, so a lot of us like to make jokes at other people's misfortunes, but we shouldn't. It's wrong, and we need to still be sensitive to other people's feelings and the tragedies that occur in other people's lives. And I think a lot of the times when we're teaching, people don't seem to get that.
Is it possible that they've never had a close friend commit suicide before?
Know how it feels when somebody has committed suicide and they lost somebody that close to them. So I don't know.
It really shakes a family. It shakes a school. It just changes lives.
Yes, it does, Cody. It's to be told on a more lighthearted subject. At the end of the day, though, the students will either have learned something about respecting themselves and others, their favorite activity, or perhaps both. In either case, this is an excellent way to conclude the session by going around the classroom, asking each and every student what they've learned in either the 40-minute period and or the multiple sessions if there were multiple sessions. And by doing this, chances are you're going to get some very good responses from the students.
Being nice to people and say that, like,
Always be yourself. Always be nice to people, even if they aren't nice to you.
I learned that one small gesture of kindness can make all the difference.
Show respect for other people and they respect you back. Okay.
From that story, you smile at someone that can make their day.
What's one thing we've all learned from being taught to respect ourselves and others? I'm going to go around the room, starting with Rebecca.
You have to respect people and give them the respect and be nice to them, even though you may hate them or you judge them. You shouldn't judge a person. You just need to give the person a chance and just be nice to people.
Morgan?
Be respectful, and you don't know what has happened and what will happen, and just be nice to anybody and everybody that you can be.
I guess I learned a different form of acceptance. Even when you just walk in the room and you see a kid by themselves, to go up and just talk to them, and you never know what they're going through, and it can make all the difference.
Even if you're having a bad day, smiling or complimenting somebody or just showing any act of kindness really helps.
Everybody is vulnerable to something, and we always just have to be conscious of that and just respect that everyone does have feelings, and that we all, we wouldn't want someone to hurt those feelings of ours, so we shouldn't do that to others.
Just the smallest things, either good or bad, can really affect somebody in a negative or positive way. And as we've already said, just the smallest things can really make somebody's day and just make a difference in their life.
And on that note, let me remind you once again, all these are merely suggestions on how to go about teaching others respect. You are the next lineup of peer leaders on the road to one day do the same thing we are doing to you now, passing the torch, if you will, reminding newcomers that it's their turn to do something different, to bring something unique to the table. As you go through your training to become a peer leader and eventually go on to train others, we can only advise if you ask. Of course, I'm graduating this year, so I won't be around for that to happen. But these 6 peer leaders will. And so before we go, I'd like to give some special thanks. We would like to give special thanks to Ms. Lutz and the Bash Diversity Committee, also the Anti-Defamation League, which started the peer leadership program, and Bash TV, all in making this video production possible. By the way, one more thing, I'd also like to point out not just these 6, but also the peer leaders that are not here for this panel today. And with that, for all of us here, I'm Rob Brown, signing off.